There's a private island in the Caribbean where helicopters land every Friday afternoon like clockwork. Passengers, a rotating cast of tech founders, hedge fund titans, and family office heirs you've probably never heard of. By Saturday morning, they're kite surfing with Olympic coaches. By Saturday night, they're eating Michelin-level sushi flown in from Tokyo that morning. By Sunday, they've already left, and the staff is resetting the entire property for the next wave. This isn't a vacation, this is just the weekend. For most of us, a weekend means catching up on sleep, maybe brunch, maybe a movie. For the ultra-wealthy, it's a 48-hour window to do things that sound like fiction. We're talking about people who don't ask, "Can I afford this?" They ask, "Is it possible?" And when you have that kind of money, the answer is almost always yes. So what does a normal weekend actually look like when you're worth hundreds of millions or billions of dollars? What do you do when every material need is solved, when your calendar is designed by a team of assistants, and when the word budget doesn't exist in your vocabulary? We're going deep, from private jets that cost more per hour than most people make in a year, to exclusive clubs where membership alone requires a net worth of 9 figures, to weekend hobbies that involve vintage fighter jets and deep-sea submersibles. This is how billionaires spend a normal weekend. And trust me, normal is the last word you'd use to describe it. Let's start with Friday. For most billionaires, the weekend doesn't begin when they leave the office. It begins when their pilot files the flight plan. And that flight plan is rarely simple. Quick stat, the average private jet costs between $10,000 and $15,000 per flight hour. A cross-country trip, that's $60,000 to $90,000 one way. And for the ultra-wealthy, this is just transportation. Some of the world's richest people don't even own one jet. They own 3 or 4. One for short hops, one for intercontinental, one that's essentially a flying hotel custom built with bedrooms, showers, and conference rooms. There's a reason for this. Time is the one thing money can't buy back. So when you're worth billions, you don't wait for flights. You don't do layovers. You leave when you want, land where you want, and you're back in the air before commercial passengers have even boarded. But here's the part that's easy to miss. The weekend itself isn't always about relaxation. For a lot of these people, leisure is just as structured, just as optimized as their work week. Take the typical Friday evening. A billionaire might land in Aspen, or the Hamptons, or Monaco, or Napa. They're not checking into a hotel, they're arriving at one of their own properties, or staying at a friend's compound that's staffed like a 5-star resort. Dinner isn't a reservation, it's a private chef, sometimes one who's flown in specifically for the weekend. The menu might be designed around ingredients sourced that morning from a farm 2 states away, or from a specific fisherman in the Mediterranean, and they're not eating alone. The guest list is curated. It's not just friends, it's other founders, investors, artists, philanthropists, people who can write checks, open doors, or create opportunities. Even the downtime is productive. This is the part most people don't understand. A billionaire's weekend isn't an escape from their world, it's an extension of it. The deals, the networks, the influence, it's all still happening. It's just happening over wine that costs $5,000 a bottle instead of in a conference room. Saturday morning, this is where things get interesting, because this is when the hobbies come out. And when you're a billionaire, hobbies don't mean golf at the local country club. Let's talk about a few real examples. There's a well-known tech billionaire who spends his weekends flying vintage warplanes. Not just owning them, actually flying them. He has a collection of restored World War II fighters, and on Saturday mornings, he's up at dawn doing aerobatic maneuvers over the desert. Quick stat, restoring and maintaining a single vintage warplane can cost upwards of $2 million. Flying it, another $50,000 a year in fuel, insurance, and upkeep. For him, it's a hobby. For most people, it's a museum piece. Then there's the world of super yachts, and not the kind you see docked in Miami. We're talking about yachts that are over 300 feet long, with helipads, submarines, and full-time crews of 30 or 40 people. One billionaire reportedly uses his yacht as a floating home base. He'll spend the weekend cruising the Mediterranean or the Caribbean, hosting dinners for 20 guests and never touching land. The yacht is staffed with chefs, sommeliers, masseuses, personal trainers, and security. The operating cost. Estimates suggest anywhere from $30 to $50 million a year, just to keep it running. Or take someone like Larry Ellison, co-founder of Oracle. He owns an entire Hawaiian island. Not a house on an island, the island. 98% of Lanai, pronounced La-na-i. and his weekends there reportedly involve everything from sailing to overseeing his private hydroponic farms. This is what weekend freedom looks like at the billionaire level. You're not limited by geography or access or rules. You create your own world. Now let's zoom out, because there are three big forces that shape how billionaires spend their weekends. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. First, access to the inaccessible. For the ultra wealthy, the weekend is a chance to experience things that simply aren't available to the public. Private game reserves in Africa, where you can track rhinos with a guide who works exclusively for you. Michelin-starred chefs who don't have restaurants, they only cook for private clients. Art galleries that never open to the public but host viewings for a select few collectors. Quick stat, there are reportedly over 500 private member clubs around the world that require net worths of at least $100 million just to be considered for membership, and some of these clubs don't even have names. You're invited, that's it. Second, the need for privacy and control. When you're worth billions, anonymity becomes a luxury in itself. You can't just walk into a restaurant. You can't just go to a beach. So the weekend becomes about creating private worlds, renting out entire resorts, booking private islands, hiring security teams that travel with you everywhere. There's a reason so many billionaires own homes in places like Jackson Hole, or Aspen, or the Maldives. These are places where privacy is built into the infrastructure, where locals are used to wealthy residents and don't make a fuss, where the paparazzi don't bother showing up. And third, the trophy factor. This is the part that's hardest to talk about, but it's real. For a certain tier of the ultra wealthy, the weekend is also about status signaling. Not to the public, to each other. Who has the bigger yacht? Who has the rarer car collection? Who just bought a Basquiat at auction? Who's hosting the most exclusive dinner party of the season? It's a game, and the stakes are measured in tens of millions of dollars. One example, there's a billionaire who reportedly bought a vintage Ferrari that once belonged to a Hollywood legend. He paid over $40 million for it. And on weekends, he takes it to private car rallies where only a few dozen people in the world are invited. The car isn't about transportation, it's about being able to say you own it. So what does all of this actually feel like? Imagine waking up on a Saturday with zero obligations, not because you're unemployed, but because you have a team of people whose entire job is to make sure your life runs smoothly. Your assistant has already coordinated your schedule. Your chef has already prepped your breakfast based on your preferences. Your pilot is already on standby. Your trainer is already waiting at your private gym. Your security team has already swept the property. You don't think about logistics. You just exist. For a lot of billionaires, the weekend is also about being unreachable. Not because they're on vacation, because they've built systems that allow them to disconnect without consequence. They're not checking email. They're not answering calls. They're not managing crises. They have people for that. The weekend is protected time, and it's protected with the same intensity that a world leader's schedule is protected. Quick stat, some billionaires reportedly employ what's called a household manager or estate director. Someone who oversees everything from staff scheduling to property maintenance to travel logistics. These positions can pay upwards of $300,000 a year, and the person in that role is essentially running a small corporation. And then there's the social side, because for many billionaires, the weekend is when the real networking happens, not at conferences, not at board meetings, but at private dinners or on yachts or at exclusive retreats. There's a well-known gathering that happens every year in Sun Valley, Idaho. It's run by an investment bank, and it's invitation only. The guest list includes some of the most powerful people in media, tech, and finance. They spend the weekend hiking, attending talks, and making deals that won't be announced for months. This is the world where a casual Saturday conversation can turn into $1 billion partnership. So here's the bigger question. What does it mean to have this much freedom? Because on one level, it's fascinating. It's aspirational. It's a glimpse into a world most of us will never experience. But on another level, it raises some uncomfortable questions. Is this level of wealth isolating? Are these weekends fulfilling, or are they just another form of optimization, another box to check? And what does it say about the world we live in when some people spend more on a weekend trip than entire communities spend in a year? There's no easy answer, but here's what we do know. For the ultra-wealthy, the weekend is both a luxury and a reflection of a larger system. A system where time, access, and experience can all be bought, where privacy is a product, where leisure is still productive, and where the gap between the top 1% and everyone else isn't just financial, it's experiential. These weekends aren't just about wealth, they're about power. The power to move through the world on your own terms. The power to create experiences that don't exist for anyone else. The power to say yes to anything, anytime, anywhere. And whether you see that as inspiring or troubling probably says more about your own values than it does about the billionaires themselves. If this video gave you a new perspective on how the ultra wealthy live, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of luxury, power, and money. Drop a comment and let me know, if you had a billionaire's budget for one weekend, what would you do? Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.